USA is an insane anti-human capitalist dystopia, and I am so happy I don't live here. Today I read how some guy got fired from his job because he has a disability. Yesterday I read how some guy got forced by his employers to up his hours from 60 to 80, i.e. make his whole life work. Few days ago I read how a woman got fired from her job because her spouse got cancer. On a daily basis I read how people get screwed by the system and rake up enormous debt due to having mundane health conditions. And many, many more. These are the ones I can recall the quickest. But I seriously feel like every other post on this sub, our career guidance and our jobs is about how corporate USA just manages to screw each and every employee in the most cunning, inhumane way possible in order to squeeze a few bucks extra, so an executive can buy a new yacht. The level of inhumanity in this society is truly insane to me. I live in Europe, and not even the rich part of Europe. I live in the poor part of Europe. Guess what? Healthcare is almost universally free. And what is not free is covered by insurance, which employers give as a benefit, and not out of necessity. If someone tries to force you to work 80 hours, then too bad. They will be fined out of existence by the regulator. Got a baby on the way? Well, then it's 1 year maternity leave with full pay, 1 more year with half pay, and 1 more year with no pay. Your employer must keep your job and you are fully protected by the law. You get a disability on the job? Well, too bad for your employer. They are obliged to find you a suitable position and keep your salary. If they try to fire you, they need to get permission from the labor bureau first, which they certainly won't get. Scared of losing your job? Well, losing jobs here comes with 4 salaries. Why? Because it's so much easier to pay than to go through the entire extremely regulated process of actually firing someone, which in 9 out of 10 cases they will dispute successfully in court. Court proceedings will take between 6 months to a year, and the court will force the employer to not only pay every penny for the time being, but also reinstate the employee back to work and provides legal coverage against retaliation. You guys should really rise up and fight for your rights. Get back your freedom. This is insane. No human being should live like this. The United States is just a barracks for overworked, abused workforce. Americans are very isolated, and there exists a very effective propaganda system to indoctrinate, brainwash Americans into thinking it doesn't get any better than they have it. Americans have been programmed to want to have the richest rich people while beating down those of lesser means. People of lesser means actually ask to be beaten down by voting against their best interests. Some actually think they may get rich someday. Many Americans will tell you it's all in the name of freedom, a word which by itself means nothing. Freedom of what? Freedom from what? Freedom to do what? They can't say. But they all know it's better than anywhere else in the world because nobody else has freedom. More like freedom. You can have all the dumb you want in the US. I think what we are seeing is the ignorance of many generations finally coming to a head. Hopefully Americans will put their heads together to make life livable in the States. I like to think about the divide in the USA like the Matrix in some ways. The people that are considered upper class or higher are the robots, and everybody else are the humans that are just used as batteries indefinitely for the robots and their way of life. I was a support worker for 7 years and had a mental health breakdown. Depression hit me hard and I couldn't leave my house. I live in the UK and applied for disability benefits for my mental health, and now I get paid more money laying in bed than I did working 35 hours a week as a support worker. The government doesn't bother me at all. I honestly don't know what I'd do if I lived in the US and had that breakdown. I'd be homeless, right? Is there any protection or help for people like that? I read a few days ago a guy was fired because he was a few hours late because he saved someone's life. Management must have thought it would be a better decisions to let them die and be on time. Dystopian late-stage capitalism stole. I never worked for someone where I live where I only have the slightest hunch they would act like this. The healthcare system in America is only there to serve as a guaranteed fleecing from low-middle class Americans who had enough scruples to save money to pass on but of course face health challenges in old age. If you die paying the system, you are inevitably left with nothing to give to your progeny. It is by design. America has always been a plantation. And the legal term, plantation, simply means business, so that's why we are worked to death. I mean, the 13th Amendment still allows slavery if you're a prisoner. Plus read the Treaty of Paris 1783 and ask yourself why the supposed loser of that war is dictating the terms that didn't happen in other wars. America is just a business venture. I remember hearing or reading this a few years ago. As a kid I wished I was born in America. As an adult I'm delighted I wasn't. I'm still trying to figure out how to make my exit and escape this country. They don't make it easy, that's for sure. I am so unhappy that I live here. Totally agree. However, even some European companies are starting to slowly take scummiest practices from US. I know experience may differ on a country, but just some examples from Estonia. Not poorest country in EU. Excuses for firing from the job. Most job agreements are so vague, basically saying, you accept to do job for a company for a X amount. But there are a lot of details there. For example, who defines what job or job tasks are? If you guessed company that pays you, you are correct. Basically they can at any time barge in and say that now you are not just doing X work, but also Y and Z. On a personal note, I have a friend working at retail. His shop always had at least 2 workers. Because of the number of clients, one of the workers got sick of this job and left. Now he works there alone for the same pay doing twice the amount of work. Who defines level of satisfaction? Your company. I personally had the incident of getting fired because the outsourced project was about to be closed and the company just didn't need all the workers after that on new one. If it would be standard firing, we would get a year of full pay at least, so company introduces new metric on calculating your work, sets unrealistic and vague expectations. In CS we needed to have 95% positive feedback as a minimum. Anyone who worked at CS will know it is almost impossible. Oh, you failed to meet those expectations? Fired without pay. Because it is not their fault that you did not fulfill your job duties. Location. Often contracts will say that you should be ready to work in places across the city. Sure, you probably won't have to. But let's say they close a shop in your part of the city and offer you a position in another part, which increases your commute by 1h. Don't like it? Well, we end the contract without compensation because you agreed to work in all of our shops. And before any moron says, oh, just try to make a court case against them, even if you are right, and court would somehow find you correct. Not likely. You need to be mentally prepared that for years you will spend thousands of euros on a court case that you might not even win. In the United States we are slaves to the system. Without it we can't get health care. Our government and businesses cooperate to take all our profits and leave us the crumbs. Even if you make a good salary, it's likely you're working 50 hours a week with 2 or 3 weeks vacation. It would be so much easier if half the country wasn't being held hostage by the intentionally undereducated, kept in fear by the right wing telling them that the policies in their best interest are evil and will allow trans people and blacks to rape and eat their children. That's only slightly hyperbolic. Nothing in America will change until we force it to change. I agree. But also I live in NYC and have a gov job that's really chill and I genuinely enjoy. Never work more than 40 hours. Plenty of vacation time. Lots of independence. Free healthcare, all that. Coworkers that have my back. Nobody wants my job here because it pays less than others. But I do fine since I am not a typical American consumer. Though lots of people have jobs like this in my working class neighborhood. The problem here is then people are encouraged to not only overconsume but overwork. To never be satisfied. Not sure my point. I think it's yes and. Marry me so I can GTFO look of triumph. Time off to have a kid isn't material here because children aren't compatible with our economic system. When workers' rights are under attack, stand up, fight back. I would imagine most USians in this sub are aware of these things. Good for you for being able to live in a more enlightened place, I guess. Lots of us don't have that option. My favorite as an American with empathy is these stories like, man walks 20 miles to work for 20 years so the community got him a car. Like, that's not a feel-good story. It's sad a man worked 20 years and still can't afford a car. But hey, the stock market is doing good, right? Well, I agree with Op. As far as I know, in the EU your life is more or less protected by law. You get healthcare, unemployment benefits if needed, and other social structures. What I don't understand is, why don't Americans just up and quit their country and move to the EU? We have labor shortages everywhere. Build a life in a country that gives at least something back to you.
If you enjoyed this video, please check out our playlists full of similar content. Epic Ericast is like doom scrolling for your ears. Please like, share, and subscribe.